we need to involve more women entrepreneur associations, etc., in the delegations, in the business to business meetings. On our end, as the Chambers of Commerce, we're going to try to do that. Obviously,
Very warm welcome to everyone joining the WICCI's India-Italy Business Council's podcast series. For our next podcast episode, we have Mr. Vas S with us, who is a chief representative of Italy India Chamber of Commerce and is also president of Glocal Cities and Sākshi. It's a
thank you.
non-governmental organization based in Italy. During this podcast session, we'll try to understand and dwell into the landscape of entrepreneurs in India and Italy with a special focus on women. So, before we begin with this podcast session, I would like to give you a brief background about WICCI's council, Vas. So, India Italy Business Council is a chapter that empowers women by working across different bilateral corridor and with an aim to connect, lead, and build a strong community. By virtue of this podcast series, we aim to have a powerful exploration of the different complex and dynamic relationship that exist in India and Italy, and what is the status of gender equality in both these countries. So we are very, very grateful to have you on board, Mr. Vas. So, without a further ado, maybe we can jump into the discussion, or maybe if you have some greetings for our Indian audience to share, we'll be happy to hear from you.
Look, thank you very much, and it was very pleasant to receive your invitation. I really appreciate anything that is being done in the field of women's empowerment because I think it's absolutely essential in the kind of environment we're in where women need to be put in front. And honestly, if I was not the chief representative for the Indian Chamber of Commerce for Italy, you should have been interviewing a woman instead of me in this particular role because you should have probably heard more from an Italian or an Indian woman entrepreneur rather than hearing, more facts and figures from a guy on how women work in the Italy-India business relationship. So that said, very happy to be here and thank you for taking the time. And let's begin.
Yes, sure. So, as the reason of having you on board has primarily, came to my mind because I've seen that you've been an entrepreneur in Italy from past 24 years. And I believe these 24 years, if we see that what evolution India has seen at all levels, and Italy has always been a developed country, but on the levels that India has, liberalized itself on, and has globalized itself. So I believe taking an input from somebody like you who's had in entrepreneurial and leadership experience in wide range of disciplines, I believe it gives us a hang of many aspirational women who try or are looking to jump into the different roles in Italy. So if on that end, my first question to you is, can you please give a brief overview as to what is the current entrepreneurial landscape in India and Italy, and maybe highlight a few notable trends or development? Over to you.
Well, look, I won't go as far to say talk about India because I think a lot of your viewers are from the country, and I'd rather not sit here and give you figures on India. Italy and India are socially very, very similar. Um, Struggles remain to have a gender parity at the workplace as well as equal pay. And I think right now, with the European Union stepping in, as well as Italy, for the first time in its 75-year history, it has a woman prime minister at the moment in time who's doing an excellent job. But even in politics, there is a large gender gap. There isn't a 50% representation in the parliament or in city councils or at any level of public life of women, which should be because the population is actually skewed towards women. It's more women than men. So it was the election of Prime Minister Meloni, I think, was a very important step in the history of this country. And she has lived up to the occasion. She has done a wonderful job. She's carried ahead Prime Minister Draghi's agenda. She's re-established Italy's place internationally, which is something that has slid in the past governments. And she's doing her best to sort what is a very complicated post-COVID situation in this country. So I think um, already you have somebody who has broken the glass ceiling, who's very inspiring in the political angle, and I think in India that is currently missing. I think the representation of women in the Indian Parliament was, I think, 18% in the last Lok Sabha. Also in the cabinet of ministers, the representation is quite lacking. The last time India had a national female leader was Indira Gandhi, a long, long time ago. So I think we have an Indian president of the republic who is a woman, but I think female empowerment is missing at various levels, even as chief ministers of state governments, as governors, and I think this is a discussion that needs to happen socially more than politically. As far as businesses go, both countries are very focused on family oriented companies and small and medium enterprises. Women play a very important role, a lot of the times informally, because uh, the male relative happens to be the CEO of the company formally, but it is the wife or the sister or who's running the company. So there is a lot of informal female participation in the decision making process, but again, this is not formalized and this does not empower women to take decisions officially, because then formally there is always somebody else that she has to involve in the decision making process. And this is often a problem with family owned companies, because then it becomes a social issue. It's no longer just a pure business issue. But Italy has today around 23% of women in corporate leadership positions, which is in line with the European 32% plus or minus in corporate leadership positions. Now, this is obviously not enough, again, because you should aim towards parity, if not bettering the equality gap. Um, Also, in Italy, when it comes to startups, around 13.7% of startups that were registered in the last quarter, in the first quarter of 2024, were women led and owned, which means there was a majority shareholding or administrative positions which were led by women. Partly, this is also because over the years, women have been less involved in STEM, in science, technology, etc. But also, it's because there requires to be a strong push in helping women set businesses, creating a structure for them to progress and work, etc. But I think, like India, Italy also has a strong informal participation of women in the corporate sector as well as the business sector, especially when it comes to family owned enterprises. And I think that needs to now be recognized and encouraged further. It is happening, but it's very slow.
I think I agree with you, Vas, on that end, wherein you highlighted that how there is a lack of representation at different political scale of women, and that to a great extent is led due to the social and cultural factors and attitudes. So my next question to you is that India being a very culturally imbibed country, all right, and as the numbers or the stat that you stated clearly justifies that there are numerous reasons that are withholding their equal representation. And also there are these cultural attitude that tend to form a opinion or tend to value stabilize a value for a woman in a business world. So according to you, to what extent these numerous cultural norms or societal expectation influence the participation of women as an entrepreneur?
I think it's both. I think it starts off with decision making processes. I think in Italy, for example, the very fact that a prime minister is today a woman has changed the dynamic to a large extent, and we will see this trickle down into business, into other decision making over the past 4 or 5 years. I think in India as well, you need that kind of social change. I think in one end it is, there is male opposition to women taking leadership roles. The other end, there are women who do not take leadership roles because they believe that is not what is expected of them. I think it's not just social. I think it's also a personal dialogue. I think there are women who have made it. There are examples like Kiran Shaw Mazumdar, who is one of India's richest women, very self-made. India does not lack strong women, neither does Italy. You have Emma Marcegaglia here, who's taken over the family business, run it very well, headed Confindustria. India itself has set a fabulous example in Italy. I recently welcomed India's new ambassador to Italy, Ambassador Vani Rao, and she's the third female ambassador in succession that India has sent. First, there was Ambassador Reenat Sandhu, then there was Ambassador Dr. Nina Malhotra, and now there's Ambassador Vani Rao. And all three women are wonderful leaders. They've done an excellent job, and I am very happy to say they've always exceeded their predecessors, who were all male. So we're very proud of that example that India is setting here. But I think this needs to be not just in Italy, this needs to be elsewhere as well.
I agree to that. I think, Vas, India has been greatly doing different endeavors to uplift women and, have been opening up different avenues, like even, with every year, the presiding government has been bringing forth some policies or some form of strategy which may, in one way or the other, empower women and especially the women entrepreneurs. So, if I may ask you that as a chief representative of the council, what, according to you, or if in your information there are any pertinent initiative or program that may exist that support women entrepreneurs, and as per your, what is your take on their effectiveness? If you could shed some light on that.
Well, I'm not very sure how effective programs that empower women are. I know that Italy, for example, now as a part of the Next Gen Recovery Fund, has set out a certain, I think it's a 500 million euro fund for female entrepreneurship and female-led ventures. I think there are often such projects and programs, and each of them have their advantages, their good parts, their successes and their failures. I think, however, that there needs to be a fundamental social change. One is leading by example. India appointing three female ambassadors, one after the other, to Italy gives a very strong example. Electing a woman as prime minister, electing more women as presidents of regions or chief ministers, having women lead the narrative as well as the dialogue is essential to create social change. Then, of course, whatever projects that are done, whatever incentives that are given, strategies implemented, they go to support this kind of a change in mindset. But the first thing for things to be successful, for what you call women's empowerment to happen, actually, is more a change of how people think and how thought process changes. And for that, you need to change things as much as at the top as you're changing them at the bottom. That's my perspective.
So, if you've lived in Italy for good 24 years, and I mean, you've also been through and through both your personal and professional life has seen a great evolution of entrepreneurs entering in Italy, irrespective of the gender. So, if I may ask you that, if there is any story or any example that stand out for yourself, for you, wherein any woman entrepreneur has overcome numerous barriers and achieved some significant success in Italy, and if you could name someone maybe who's an Indian, or maybe somebody who's Italian and tried something in India, something like that, we would love to know it from you.
The good part about women entrepreneurs is that they tend to be humble. And so you would never hear of a woman entrepreneur going through troubles and tribulations and advertising it. So, and the few cases I do know, I wouldn't want to speak about it because I do not know how much of it is private and how much of it is not. But I've seen the resilience of women who pick up companies, families, after men leave them in messes, and build them up from the scratch and do not complain or advertise. If a man had done the same thing, you'd have probably had 10 newspaper articles and 5 interviews about it, about how he overcame everything, etc. So I think